Okay, now, can you guys hear me well? You hear me, Kathleen?
Yeah.
Perfect. So, again, welcome to Monday Night Chat. My name is Shimona Kirkland, and I have a special guest tonight with me, Kathleen Daniel. She will be discussing with me voters' rights. The reason why I chose to do this conversation this Monday is tomorrow is actually an election day where we go out and we get to vote for various offices from judicial delegates to governor, right? Tomorrow as well. Um, so we need to be aware of what's going on. I cannot list all the elections that are going on tomorrow because each district has different electoral seats that will be voted on. However, we will give you some information on how to find out what elections are in your district and where you should be going. And Nina says state assembly as well. So we will give you a link to go to find out where you should be going to vote. And then you can find out other information. And you can also Google it. You Google, find out what your district is, or if you know from voter experience, just go ahead and Google that as well. And you should be able to find what elections are going on in your area. But I would just show up to the polls if you haven't really did any research, I would just show up to the polls. There's usually people there to talk about their candidates. There's usually people there with flyers and pamphlets, but just make yourself a part of the process. I usually, hope that people are informed and that their votes are informed. However, we really just need people out there voting because it's important to show the numbers. And we will get into that in a little bit, but I want to introduce my panelist. And she's going to introduce herself, her titles, her background, and then I'm going to ask her a few questions to get the conversation started. But this conversation is unscripted. It's a candid conversation about voting. So please have your questions ready in the chat box so that we can address them. All right, so panelists, it's on you.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. So good to see some of you again that I'm so familiar with. Hi, Danica. Hi, Barbara. And really, always a pleasure to just sit down and speak with sisters. Shimona has been at this for the longest. We are friends from the field, campaign over campaign over campaign, and special initiatives. So I'm Kathleen Daniel. I am an actionist. And that means I work and organize towards action for social change and for social justice. I am not a person that necessarily does things all the time to be on camera because a lot of people call themselves activists and they work to activate people for their agenda. And that's okay, but that's not me. So I'm okay with being unsung. I just want to see change. I'm okay with not getting credit as long as we're getting justice, right? And that justice is for everybody. So my current title is a woman of leisure because I just ended my post as a director of community engagement for New York City's Health and Hospitals Test and Trace. And I will soon be hopefully taking a post with the city in the very near future. And I am a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, where I'm part of the Connection and Social Action Committee. I'm also part of the Brooklyn Parliamentarians, or the Parliamentarians of Brooklyn, New York, rather. And yes, that is a thing. Parliamentary procedure is important because this is how government is run and how meetings are run. And it's important that in the community, we engage and understand how to do that because part of civic engagement is knowing the rules, right? And knowing the rules of engagement. So I'm really not good at the talk about myself thing, but I'm really excited that we're having this conversation tonight because tomorrow is Tuesday. It's primary day. And we have some major races like governor and lieutenant governor. And there's a lot of mythology around that. So while some of you, I'm preaching to the choir. So great to have all of the choir here so that you can go out and take some information from here, take some sound bites, whatever you need so that you can go out and teach the right parts to the people. Because there's just a lot of mythology and a lot of confusion around elections, especially in New York right now. And some of it might be by design, or some of it is because of poor design. right? Because a lot of the times people who are making rules and regulations and creating processes forget about the purpose and the people for the process, right? So happy to be here tonight, and I'm going to keep it really real with no apologies.
Thank you. So we just talked about there being a primary tomorrow, and we talked about the different levels of legislation that's going to be voted upon tomorrow. But Kathleen, the numbers, I believe I heard that there was 58, over 58,000 people did early voting. I can't tell you the population of New York City residents at the moment, but 58,000 seems pretty low. Does that sound like there's going to be a good space for elections tomorrow, or do you think that New York City is behind with 58,000 doing early voting?
So this is a great question, and it brings about a super challenge that we are facing. Right now, we're looking at of the over 5.5 million registered voters in New York City, 1.5% of them have shown up to the polls so far for early voting, and early voting closed last night. So
Okay.
tomorrow is a regular primary day at your regular polling sites, unless, of course, there was a change. But your early voting site is different from your regular polling site often. So I'm going to drop in the chat a number of links as we go tonight, through tonight, so that you can find your poll site and get a number of other ranges of information. But that said, it's going to depend on a few factors. The numbers are abysmal. They were the average decrease daily, day over day, with the number of people, the percentage of people that were turning out. Even though it was growing incrementally, when you look at the overall numbers, the average decrease daily, and this was quick math that I did, was about 35%. So we were decreasing really in volume day over day by 35%, right?
Okay.
And that's how the numbers are bearing out. 1.5%. That means it was about 86,000 people voted in New York City that were eligible to vote, because 5.5 million, 5.6 million of us are registered and eligible to vote. That is insane. It's costing so much just to run a special election and have polls. And so why? Why is it this way? I'm sorry, let me first ask your question, Shimona. Do I think the turnout is going to be good tomorrow? It's a toss-up. I would have said a week ago it would be horrible. It would be absolutely abysmal, and no one was coming out because it's forecasted to rain, and because the numbers have been so low in early voting, and because there really was a poor job done of everyone who is involved in getting the word out to get the word out. And in some districts, there is not a local race, meaning there isn't a challenge for a district leader, and there's only really in Brooklyn, you're looking at only one judge really has a challenge, right? And he's running for a civil court judge. And so in some places, there's not much of a race, and in others, it's highly contentious. But also, there's the confusion of where was my poll site during early voting. Not a lot of people got the notifications that went out from the Board of Elections. Some people didn't know what in the world it meant. And then polling sites changed in some instances because of technical issues or leasing issues. And so you have seniors who got out and went to one polling site and then realized they had to walk all the way across the complex in NYCHA to go to the community center, because now it's back at the community center, and they went home because it was too hot that day. It was too far to walk, or etc. And so there's just a lot of reason why the turnout was expected to be abysmal. I have hope. I'm going to keep hope alive, like Jesse said, because we just got two major gut punches, sucker punches from the Supreme Court. And I am hoping that people are angry enough now, fed up enough, and realizing how important voting is enough that they turn out. But it's still not going to be a massive turnout. But I hope that it's not a bloodbath in that no one comes out. And I'm hoping that what has happened in the last week really galvanizes people to turn out the vote.
So my next question is more of a comment. And, you and I, we've been in the public policy, voter education, voter power game for a while. But in my experience, I felt like I was like pulling teeth when it came to primary elections. People kind of like wave it off. Oh, there's no presidential election, or it's not like a, or let me say, not so much as primary, just local elections. Like when it comes to our assemblies, our city council, our judicial, some people didn't even know that they were voting for judges and judicial leaders who nominate Supreme Court judges. Like they didn't know that process. And even myself, I'm learning every year something different that was on those ballots that I was just checking off boxes for because I was like, I'm doing my part. But do you think that it's by design that our local push for voter turnout is less, I want to say, not as publicized as it is for a presidential election?
So the short answer is yes, because the biggest group that has the loudest voice and works the hardest on voter turnout are the candidates, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the candidates are doing so with an agenda. Obviously, they're going to turn you out to vote. And if they're polling and you happen to not be inclined to vote, or you're not inclined to vote for them, then they're going to stop communicating with you, as they should,
Mm-hmm.
and stop spending money on your voter education information and move on to someone who is going to vote for them, right? And
Right.
so that means constantly decreasing dollars in investment, right,
Mm-hmm.
in people and a smaller group of people, because the candidate is going to focus on the ones that are either on the fence or going to vote for them. Then you're also talking about smaller districts than the presidential. The presidential district is all of America. But when you start to look on the hyper-local level, on the assembly level, when you start to look on the state Senate level, these are far, far smaller districts than for a presidential race. And so the advertisements are not going to be ubiquitous. They're not going to be everywhere, right? And that's just common sense. And yes, that is by design. The problem I'm having is what we need to be focusing on and harassing our legislators about is, if you're going to put this much money out to run an election, right, and have the polls and the poll site workers and the machinery, etc., then we need to demand that set amount of money is earmarked for voter turnout.
Right.
Because what is the point of building it if no one knows it's there? You don't build a hospital and not tell the community that medical services are available. You don't open a business and not advertise so that you get customers. So if the city and the state are going to run elections, they need to advertise to the voters in a way and in mediums and using vehicles that the voters can access and understand. Period, case closed. And they need to debunk a lot of the mythology and a lot of the difficulty in voting. So one of the good things that happened out of COVID was that most people could vote through absentee ballots, and you can request them electronically. Except what happens if you didn't get it? If you requested your absentee ballot and you didn't get it in time, what do? And I have been dealing with the Board of Elections all day today on assisting people in nursing homes with this issue, on assisting people with disabilities who cannot go and fill an affidavit. So just for everyone's information, if you requested in a timely manner before the deadline your absentee ballot, it was sent to you in the mail. But what if you didn't get it? You can still go to the polls. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And you can cast a vote on a paper ballot, which is called an affidavit ballot. So if you requested an absentee ballot, you forgot to mail it, you lost it, you didn't get it, go to the polls tomorrow between 6 a.m. and 9 p.m. and cast your ballot. You won't be able to use the machine, but you can cast an affidavit ballot. And then they will go back and make sure they didn't get your absentee ballot in the mail and cast your vote. So don't let anyone disenfranchise you and deny you your vote. Problem is, if you waited till the last moment, or if you didn't get your absentee ballot and you're homebound, right? And you have no way to get, you're visually impaired. You have no way to get to the polls. Then we've got a major problem, because what you would have to do is print out a new affidavit ballot request, have a proxy there to witness you signing it, have the proxy take it downtown Brooklyn to the Board of Elections office, which is open 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Then they would issue that proxy that you authorize in writing, that your ballot. They would then take the ballot back home to you, where you can vote, and then your same proxy person can take it to any polling site and shove it in the box. That's a convoluted process, and we're going to have to fix it.
Hey, look, I'm confused thinking about it. I'm not impaired. I'm like, look,
yeah. And I confirmed this today with the Board of Elections. I was on the phone with them, and thank you, Alan, and all of the staff there. Thank you for the Commissioner, Rodney Pepe Souvenir, because they took my calls all day and helped us work this out. But this is what happens if you didn't get your absentee ballot and you can make it to the polls. Go anyway. Fill out an affidavit ballot. If you did not get your absentee ballot and you cannot make it to the polls, print out a new form. Have somebody witness it to be your proxy that can then take the form to the Board of Elections, pick up your ballot, bring it home to you so you can vote, and then drop it off before 9 p.m. at your local polling site.
Is that the same for like disabled individuals or senior citizens? Can they have a proxy as well, or is it that, you know, if you're not impaired, you have to go to the physical polling site?
It's the same for anyone who requested and has a right to an absentee ballot and did not receive it. Now, if you did not request one, and now you urgently need one, you may be able to apply for the absentee ballot with a note, but I am not certain on the process on that. But if you applied for one, timely manner, and are not able to make it to the polls, didn't get your absentee ballot, then you print out a new form, sign it with a proxy, and have the proxy, some angel in your community, go back and forth for you, picking it up from the Board of Elections, bringing it to you, getting you to fill it out, and then dropping it off to a poll site for you. Or to the post office, so it's postmarked tomorrow.
Awesome. And what time does it have to be at the post office?
The post offices are closing tomorrow, I believe, at 5 and 6, depending on your local office. So check that, or to any polling site before 9 p.m. And so this is exactly the problem. Not too many people are going to see this in time. Hopefully people will watch this when we post this tonight, right? And everyone on the call, please post this. But these are the nuances and things that happen in everyday life. And the 77-year-old, the 86-year-old, the person in the skilled nursing home isn't necessarily seeing this. But if you have a loved one, a family member, a community member that may be in this situation, this is how you help them. And then the day after Election Day, contact your local leaders and tell them to fix this process. Because I firmly believe that process should never hamper purpose of any regulation or form. It just doesn't make sense. The purpose of the process is to ensure that everybody gets to vote and can have an equitable voice in the process. If the process is so convoluted that the people that need the most assistance get the least and are disenfranchised, your process defeats your purpose, and that's never right.
Right. Like you stated earlier when we first began, like the two, major issues that, like the 2 steps back we took this past weekend in the Supreme Court. Could you explain to the group what's at stake if we don't become more a part of the process of the, electoral process?
Say that again, Shimona.
I said, can you explain to the group what's at stake? And I know there's a lot at stake, but just a little bit about what's at stake for us if we don't become diligent and involved in the electoral process.
Okay. So, and this is hard, to even think about without cussing or crying. I don't know which side to go on, because it is what is at stake is our lives. is our civil rights, is everything that our ancestors fought for. So we can't look at anything present day without the context of the history. There isn't a group in history, not one in America, that got the right to vote, the ballot, without bleeding for it. It is a very bloody ballot, okay? And I'm gonna run through really quickly. So 1776, white men 21 and older who own land got the right to vote. They got the ballot, but they had to bleed for it by having a war against their own mother England, okay? Millions of bodies all across, right, the country in order for them to get the ballot in America for white men who own land. Then in 1868, the 14th Amendment passes. They gave everybody who was a citizen, who gave the rights of citizenship to anybody born in America. But that was not a racial reality, right? That still left it to the white landowners 21 and over. 1870, we get the 15th Amendment that eliminated racial barriers to voting, but it was not a state reality. And I'm going to talk to you about states' rights in just a minute. 1920, women to go through the suffragette movement, and the suffragettes were appropriately named because they suffered. They were jailed, they were put in asylums, their families were taken from them. They suffered, they were beaten, they bled to get that ballot in 1920. 1924, the Native Americans, the indigenous people from whom we stole this land, they, through the Indian Citizenship Act, get the right to vote. And do I need to talk to you about the blood that we shed, the genocide that they had to go through to get the ballot? I'll say no more. 1964 Federal Civil Rights Act finally says, okay, black people, go ahead. You can vote, but so can anybody of any race, any religion, any education. But it was not a reality until the 24th Amendment, also in 1964, passes, that eliminated the barriers across multiple states, back to states' rights, of the poll tax. We used to be taxed a great amount of money. So if you wanted to vote, you had to pay the poll tax. But if you failed to pay your poll tax from all the years that you were eligible to vote, and remember the 14th Amendment in 1868 said we were eligible, but we were not permitted to, right? And we waded through massive blood and lynchings in order to get there in 1964. You had to pay the poll tax from all the years that you were eligible from the time you turned 21 in order and bring yourself current in order to vote. And so in 1964, the 24th Amendment finally said no more poll taxes anywhere in the country. So the ballot that we're casting has a legacy of blood all over it. And not to vote, it ain't never right not to exercise your right to vote. In America, the Black Manifesto needs to be everything that they beat you for, jailed you for, killed you for, and I mean your ancestors, is everything that you should do. Like education, like freedom, like owning land, like voting, okay? So let's talk a little bit about states' rights here. So states' rights are part of the cause of the Civil War. If not the cause, it was the cause, right? Because you had states that wanted to keep slaves and not be taxed for them. Nobody ever paid a single tax for the property that they owned that were slaves. Not one penny. Let's be clear about that, right? And they wanted voting rights meaning voting in Congress. They wanted congressional rights and more power because they counted this as 3/5 of a human being, each slave they owned, which increased their population. So they wanted all the benefits, but they didn't want to pay for it. And who paid for it? We did. We did with this, literally the skin off of our backs. So states' rights said slavery here, no slavery there. States' rights said if my slave escaped and went from Tennessee to Kentucky, then you got to give it back to me because that's my property. States' rights said you can vote, but you're going to have to give me a poll tax. States' rights said a woman can or cannot have an abortion. So states' rights, the more we increase states' rights, the more our country will be divided. And so it was brilliant. We created constitutional amendments. There were laws that said these are the laws of the land, and the federal government was going to have to step in and say, you cannot cross these lines or these barriers. Yet, for the first time in history now, we are removing and allowing the Supreme Court which technically it is within their power, to remove, delete, erase civil rights. And now you are seeing a rash of states banning abortion. So, however you feel about the issue, be you pro life, pro choice, or agnostic, you must pay attention to states' rights and think
Mm-hmm.
about in this country how many states voted for people that constantly maligned different races, immigration, that stole money, that were corrupt, that lined their pockets, disseminated disinformation and misinformation, and lied. You want to think about, do we want those states infringing on our rights? And then make your decision about where you think the government should and should not step in. Because if the state next door says everybody can have a gun, what is to stop them from coming into this state? If the state, 2 states away from your borders says abortion is banned, it's absolutely illegal, is your state prepared to have all of those women come move over here? And ladies, listen, you need to get an abortion. I think that, or this is your choice, or you're thinking about it, I think that what we should be organizing women is a series of Airbnbs or spare rooms so that our sister girls from whatever state can come and spend a night or two for free in the privacy of our homes, take care of their health, and then go back home, and none would be the wiser, and there would be no hotel receipts, there would be no way to track her or trace her. But we need to support each other, because we are. There is no one woman, there is no one girl, there is no one woman's rights. It is all of our rights. And the more rights we give to states, or like Taraji said, to guns, I mean, think about it. By voting, you get to make the decision about who is making a decision on everything from birthing to bullets in this country.
Yep.
Birthing to bullet. And right now, both are completely out of our control because we stopped going to the polls. Every vote counts. Every person's voice counts. But if you discount your own voice, then it's your own fault. But I'm not trying to live in or raise my children in the world of your apathy. Get out the vote tomorrow.
Yep.
And every election thereafter.
Yep. And so, of course, we're going to continue this conversation. I am an advocate for voting always, but I want to also give a shout out to Barbara Williams, who is on the chat tonight. Barbara was out there marching for our rights, ladies. I saw her all weekend doing lives. Barbara put up a wave or something so everybody know where you at. I was very humble and proud of her. And I'm about to tear up because Barbara, no matter what the issue is, Barbara is going out there and she's going to fight for what's right, and I'm so proud of her. No matter if she's personally affected by it, she is for her community. So I want everybody to give Barbara a hand clap and give her kudos and love because she was out there with thousands of people fighting for us and taking a stand for us and being a stand for us. So I want to shout her out. Thank you, Barbara. But I also want to read this one statement that I found online because, I'm not in my child rearing age anymore, but I do have a daughter and I have a daughter-in-law and I have nieces and I have sisters and I have friends who are still birthing children or still in child rearing ages. And, and look, at the end of the day, it doesn't even matter because if they can start making decisions about our body now, and this is just the first step, they can continue. They won't stop here. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm just gonna read a statement that made me very humble from New York State. It said, abortion has been legal under the New York State law since 1970, 3 years before Roe v. Wade decision legalized abortion throughout the country. Because the right is codified in New York State law, federal decision to limit access to abortion will not impact New York State. And that's what Kathleen is saying to you. We are in a great position as New Yorkers to help women in other states safely have access and not be ridiculed or not be attacked for making a decision for themselves, for their bodies. And I love the idea of kind of creating a new underground railroad for women to be able to do this safely, because it is their body, their choice. And it's, my daughter said, I'm never leaving New York State, because I talked to my daughter about these things. She was like, I'm never leaving, because the fact of the matter is, people think, and I think this is I can't speak for everyone, but I would say from the conversations you hear in comedy and in other conversations about abortion and about child rearing, people think that women get abortions for one reason, because they don't want the kid. And that is not, there's so many different reasons, health reasons. Everybody is, who am I echoing? There's health reasons, there's health reasons, there's financial reasons, there's so many reasons why women can make that decision. Some women, the baby is not even healthy, and then you're going to bring a baby who's not healthy into the world. It's so many different reasons. And, I don't want to try to explain anybody's circumstances, but there's so many reasons why a woman will have to make that decision. It's not about somebody's, their character. I feel like women's character has been under attack when it comes to this. They're like, oh, pro-life, don't kill baby, you're a murderer. I think that's unfair. Like Barbara said, victims of rape. There's so many different things that, can be a reason for doing that. And what hurts me is that they're attacking women's character as if, first of all, as if we make the babies by ourselves. Okay, hello, good morning. And so, I'm very happy Kathleen brought that up, but I also wanted to just give you guys, some context to why New Yorkers are in a position to help. So please look in the chat box. Nina and Kathleen are putting some links in the chat box for you to use for voting rights, for information on how to find your polls and all this different information. So please pay attention to that. So Kathleen, I have one more question for you before I open it up to the floor. Now, you and I have been organizers, for a long time, and we have been putting fire to a lot of elected officials behind. And one of my things that I say to people all the time when, I talk about voting, I'm not like, oh, just go to the polls and that's that. In addition to going to the polls, I feel like my thing has always been that you have to hold elected officials that you vote in office, or either that was elected, accountable. And people sometimes don't do that. They say, okay, I went to vote, and then they watch the news and see that the person is not doing the job that they said they were going to do, and they get upset. Oh my God, I voted for such and such, and that person's not doing the job. However, they've never attended a focus group or any type of meeting or forum, or even visit the district office and ask questions. Like, what are some like basic things you think people can do to manage their vote? Can you unmute? Let me try it again. Hold on. Where are you? Okay, go ahead. Try it now.
Perfect. Thank you. And I love that, the way you said that, Shimona. How should people manage their vote, right? Let's talk about money. If you invest your money in something, a restaurant, stocks, whatever it is, you're going to constantly go and check on how your money is growing, how your money is doing, right? If you lend somebody money, you're going to be looking at them, and every time you see them, hey, how you doing? And you're going to be looking for your money, right? And you're going to be looking at what they're spending, because if this person owes you $1,000, but they're talking about they're going to Aruba, really? Okay, but what about my money, right? And you're going to keep your eye on your money. And when you don't think that your money's growing enough, or you can't see what's happening with your money, or you don't know when you're going to get your money, you're going to open your mouth and inquire. You're going to ask. You have the same freedom, ability, and right for information from your elected leaders. And you don't have to go and be but you can. And you can call their office. They are paid by your tax dollars. The money that comes out of your check before you get it, they got it. And they're being paid for that. And their staff are being paid for that. So watch your money, manage your money, talk about your money with the people that have your money, and be like your money. What's up? What are you doing? I got this problem or I got that. You don't have to know the issues. You're not the candidate. You're not the elected official. You need to know your issues. You need to know the issues on your block or your neighbor or your mother in her district or your father in that one, your great uncle in the other one. You just need to be worried about the issue you're worried about. It's not your problem that, you know what, well, they're concerned about the bike lanes, but I really am concerned about the dollar vans. Good, then be concerned about the dollar vans and open your mouth and talk about your money to the person who has it and gets it before you do. Because you work for it, because you earn it. And if you didn't vote and you have a record of not voting, they are not going to listen. They're not going to think you exist. And a lot of us think that these guys are hypocrites. They keep coming around asking me to vote, and then I don't hear from them. Because if you didn't vote, they're not even going to bother to send you a mailer. They're not going to invest in you if you are not investing in them. And even if you didn't vote for them, they're going to listen to you even more strongly, because you could tell a whole bunch of other people not to vote for them the next time. You can fire them because you hire them. And here's another thing that's really important about this whole process, and why we need to activate and open our mouths, right? And watch our money and mind our money. When you look at some of these local races, and by local, I mean city, I mean state, looking at some of the judges in their districts, these are not presidential elections. The margin for winning, I know people that have been elected to the city council and won by 100 votes. We know people that have been elected to the state assembly and won by 200, 300 votes. Some of us go to parties and clubs with more people than that. Right? And so think about that in your church, in your club, in your text, in your phone. You got more than 100 people. Please don't tell me you don't. On your Facebook, your Instagram, you've got more than 100 people. Why would you let somebody win by 100 votes and you didn't agree with them in the first place, or you never heard of them? And if you won and you never heard of them, make sure they've heard of you.
Yes. And Barbara had a comment in the chat box. She said, know your electeds, but, better yet, they should know you. And, because they're not going to come vote for you. This might be a little cheat sheet, but as organizers, we get to see the back end. We get to see people's voter history, how often they vote, what districts they're voting in. So your elected officials are seeing that. And this is what they're going by. They're going by the numbers. They are only knocking on the doors of people that they have a sure vote for. And this is lazy electoral process. I'm telling you, it's lazy. Because if I know that I'm going to have 300 people turn, I'm going to go to those 300 people and give them turkeys every November and do a toy drive of those 300 people and send nice little mailers to those 300 people. But it's super, super lazy, because when you think about it, some statistics have shown that people 25 to 45 are the lowest of turnout. But who do they get? They get our seniors. They're home all the time, right? They're more active. They're more engaged because they're not busy. They count on our busyness because we have to conform to capitalism. We have to do the work because we have to pay the taxes. We have to pay for the seniors because our money is going into Social Security and, all these other things that are taking care of, seniors' lives. So, although they did their job and put their money in a bucket when they were working, now the younger people are the ones that should be focusing and active, because we're the ones putting the money in the pot now as they're receiving their money. So they count on 25 to 45-year-olds not to vote. That's why we don't get the some of us who vote often, of course, we get it. But those of us that are not, they're not worried about you because you're not going out there. So if you are someone who is 25 and older on this call, between 25 and 45, please post this weekend and tell your friends, please, please, please vote. It's important because these laws that are being changed, some of us, it won't affect us. Some of us who are past that threshold of 35, 40, the laws that they're changing and tweaking and turning are for the younger generation. They are shaping your life. They're shaping your lifestyle, how you're going to raise your families, how you're going to raise yourself, how you're going to feed yourself. So that's the group that has to be bullseye focused. But of course, the older generation, we're looking because we already got waxed because we weren't focused. So now we're paying attention because we're like, wait, hold up. When I was 18 and all those predatory loans and couldn't get a house and our credit is shot, a lot of all this stuff, we didn't have education. We didn't have financial education in school. These are things our elected officials can work on. They can push our DOE to do. They can push our mayors to do. They can push our governors to put more funding in our educational systems. They can reform our criminal systems. They can change the gun laws. But if we're not picking people that are for the people and want real change because we're not focusing and paying attention, this is what we're going to get.
Yes.
Right? One other point I would like to say is that, in the spirit of us being a part of the electoral process, we also need to understand that we as a community have work to do as well.
Yes.
Electoral process is an element. There are other pieces that need to work, and it includes awareness, sharing information, gathering together, fighting for issues that don't have nothing to do with you. That don't have nothing. Men, we need y'all out there stomping the ground for women's rights. These are your mothers, your sisters, your wives, your daughters.
Yes.
That you have to go out and fight for. Of course, you don't have to deal with that process, but some of you are by those women's side when they have to make those decisions. Your pockets are going to get hit when they can't get the services they need to make a decision for themselves. You're going to be at those hospitals. You're going to be there for the emotional support. So you need to be in the fight. So we're at 8:54.
Oh my goodness.
And I want to open the floor before I let Kathleen say her final words. So if anybody have any questions, just raise your hand and I will unmute you. And then you can ask your question to Kathleen. Any questions on the floor? I know we're preaching to the choir. I see the Nix is on here. She's a firecracker. I see Nina on here. She's a firecracker. Joel, he's also out here. He's a firecracker. So basically, I have a lot of leaders on here who already know the game, right? Yes. So now our job tonight, like I said, I record this. I'm going to upload it to YouTube as soon as we end. And I'll send everybody the link. And let's push this out because this is a great conversation. And I want to thank Kathleen for always keeping it real, but always being resourceful. Like this woman, she has the information. She has, the back door, the front door, the side door, the door that don't open. She gonna knock it down, ask somebody to open it, or create a door. So I really appreciate you coming on, and thank you for always saying yes. Because you are, and she's an amazing speaker. She has so much energy, and that smile is contagious. So I want to thank her as well. But like I said, we have a bunch of leaders on this call tonight, but we have the recording, so we're gonna push it out tonight to make sure that people understand. But we're not gonna end here. I'm gonna create some more opportunities for Kathleen and others to come on to talk about the electoral process because there is another election in November. So if people don't get the information tonight for tomorrow's election, there's another election in November, and there's August. There's one in August and November. Yes. Okay. So there's one in August and there's one in November. So people still have an opportunity to get in the game, get involved, and get their vote out there. Yes. If we make a smallest of change with this small group, it is more than would have been done without us. Yes. So Kathleen, do you have any final words before we wrap up?
So before I give you a call to action, because can't be an actionist if I don't ask you for an action. You never get off the phone, off a call with an organizer without getting an ask, right? But before I give you the ask, just a few myths that we need to debunk. A lot of people in the neighborhood, in the hood, say that their name is no good, they cannot vote. If you are incarcerated On a misdemeanor, you can vote through absentee ballot. Okay, so for the August primary that nobody's aware of, that no one is expecting, and that's for our federal races, our congressional seats, okay, that we fought so hard to make sure everybody got counted in the census so we didn't lose. Very important, because who are the people when it's time to approve somebody for the Supreme Court that's going to grill them all day and put them through what they put Katanji through? We're voting for them, those types of people, in August. Okay, so look out for those August primary dates. If somebody is incarcerated and it's not a felony, they can vote. If somebody has a felony and is on probation, they can vote. Don't let anybody disenfranchise you. Your name is good. Okay, so make sure you can vote. But now, if you were incarcerated and came out, you need to register to vote again. Even though you were always registered and you was always around the way, always in mom's house, once you come out and you rejoin society, you must re-register. Just a simple voter registration form, and you are good, even if you're on probation. Very important. Don't believe the hype. And don't listen to the person sitting next to you on the stoop, man. Call an activist. Hit me up on Facebook, on the gram. I will answer your question, whether you want to know the answer or not. Okay, so ask somebody that's doing the work. Now, I need us all to do the work. Remember, from birthing to bullets and back, they are taking control of our lives and eradicating our voices. And think about it. The more rights states have in this country, the less rights we have had. The federal government often can step in and say, you're not going to go below this bar. But if they don't set the bar and they pass the buck, that buck is never coming around to us. Real talk. Slavery was a state decision. Okay, poll taxes. What is the name of that man? Jim Crow and all his negative cousins. Those were state choices. Those were not federal choices. Okay, so real talk. The more rights you give to states, the less rights you give to folks, and it's time to organize. So when we get off of this call tonight, you're gonna go in your phone, copy some of these links, get your poll site. Text somebody, text 10 somebodies at least, no less than 10. It's not even going to take you 10 minutes to do it, but 10 people, and tell them to get out the vote tomorrow. And if they hit you back and say, I already voted, great. Please text 10 people the same text I sent you. All right? Because action, without taking the action, we lost. All we're doing is being apathetic. And the absence of action is apathy, and apathy is too damn expensive. Okay, so please, 10 people, no less than that, text them under the sound of my voice. And if you're seeing this after Election Day, the primaries are in August. So hit people up and tell them to go out and make sure they're registered to vote and ready for the August primary. Because in this town, if you are not registered as a Democrat, you're going to have a lot less choices on the ballot in November. Or if you're not registered as a Republican, because it's only going to be one of each party. So if you want more choices, register for a party. I don't care which party you register for, but register and be part of the decision-making process, okay? Because we can't say we don't have a seat at the table that we built on our backs and created the foundation for if you don't come to the table, all right? Now, sometimes you got to bring your own chair, but we talk about that on another Monday night.
Right. So, Kathleen, I have one more quick question in regards to that. So, if individuals wanted to pick up voter registration cards to maybe like give to neighbors or family members, how do they go about doing that?
So, go to your local New York City Board of Elections. You can also go to the state election office, but the local New York City Board of Elections. And if you happen to be free tomorrow, they're all open from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. So go vote and then stop by an office and pick up a stack. Or talk to your local organizers, because we got mad voter registration forms.
Yeah, I have a whole bucket.
Yes, and they do come in multiple languages. So you can hit me in the chat or DM me on any one of the social media vehicles, and I will help you get voter registration forms, because the tasks are many, the laborers are few. So we've got to do this work. Make sure put some in your bag. You know you got old tissue and lollipops and certs and all that kind of stuff in your bag. Throw in 2 voter registration forms. Make it a goal that every week you get rid of those 2 and then you put 2 new ones in your bag, right? Organizing is
You know
simple.
what? Yeah, you know what's funny? Now that I'm thinking about it, at these graduations, there should have been a voter registration table. At these,
Yes,
you get your diploma, you go over there and register to vote.
yes, yes. It's
Next year,
that
it's
simple.
happening.
It's that simple, you guys. Because once they turn 18, they gotta apply for selective service for our young men, right? Once they turn
Mhm.
18, put that form in their hands. And one of the things that I am going to be working on with DOE next year, ready or not, here I come, Chancellor Banks. We need to organize a stroll to the polls for the kids, the same way that we used to organize the marches when they were putting in their college applications. So they did it all together. We need to do the same thing and choose in April or late May. Everybody that turned 18 that year is going to fill in their voter registration form and we're going to walk it to the post office, damn it. But we need to make a
Yep.
big deal out of it because they don't understand that they are inheriting this legacy that people bled for. Every group, white, black, indigenous, women, men, bled for that ballot. And if we don't pass that history down to these children, they're never going to know how important their voice is. So let's stroll to the polls. I want to talk to every parent coordinator, every principal, every educator that can hear what I'm saying right now. DM me. Let's organize and stroll to the polls for every high school student next year.
Yep. Well, I already seen Danixa and Nina said they are with it. So, yep. So, I want to thank everybody for coming on tonight. Again, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box. Kathleen, in the chat box, people want some of that breakdown around probation and felony. So if you can send me a quick points, I can make it into a flyer or something and send it out to folks.
Yes.
Um, Kathleen's email is in chat box. You can take that down. If you have any further questions, just go ahead and email her your questions. Um, but I want to thank everybody. This was amazing. And I'm going to get right to it and posting this so I can send it out to everyone. Everyone on here, I have your numbers directly, so I'll text it to you, the link to you, so you can send it, post it on your social media, or text to your friends. I haven't watched. It was an hour long, not so sure people are going to watch the whole hour, but hopefully they will. Encourage them to. But it's going to be forever in the world because it's going to be on my social media page, and I'm going to put it on my Facebook as well. Again, thank you everybody for coming out tonight. It's 9:05. It's time to wrap up.
Thank you, Shimona, for doing this work. This is important. It doesn't matter how many people are showing up into one room. It matters what we do when we leave this room and how many people hear this message. So thank you because you are always tried and true. So Shimona, stay on the ground and she stay in the Zoom. So thank you, sis, for what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate all my friends. And all of you just know I'll be calling you for something soon. All right. That's it for Monday Night Chat. Good night, guys.